Okay, this is Jimmy Jive, and I'm coming to you from a location in Garden City, Michigan. That's right, Garden City, Michigan. One of the most famous record stores in the area for 40 years now, celebrating 40 years of business. And that is amazing because so many record stores have come and gone. And this isn't just a record store. Records, CDs, cassette, paraphernalia, posters, you name it, t-shirts, hoodies, everything. Everything you want that's rock and roll, whether it's hard rock or whatever. He's got here. Today, my guest is the owner of this establishment of over 40 years now. The name of the store, of course, is, if you haven't guessed already, Rock of Ages. And my guest today is, like I said, the owner, Mr. Bob Farsakian. Hey, Bob, how you doing?
What's up?
All right, Bob, let's get started with a little history. I know your original location was across the street from where we are now on Ford Road, over near where a club called Frankie's used to be. You started your first store there in 1984. My first question for you as far as the history is why? Why did you decide to get into this business?
Around that time, I had a wholesale business. It was in Westland, and I wholesaled to all the high school stores, record stores. I was pretty much going out to all the and I was a big distributor at the time. We're all young. We just put this thing together to wholesale to all the other shops around town. I had a sister working for me. I had friends working for me, and we just got bigger and bigger and all kinds of. Then it got to a point where the wholesale end of it. I mean, I did get lucky, and it peaked during the Michael Jackson era. But then it started slowing down because every store got flooded, and I thought, we've got a lot of merch. Why don't we try and take all this extra merchandise, being a distributor, because I was wholesale and distributing throughout, let's put it into retail, because then I'm going to make a little bit more profit. So it was just kind of let's see if this might work. So a friend of mine, Bob, that worked for me, he says, hey, there's this place in Garden City, you can, but it's for rent where he lived. I was from Westland. And he said, hey, this place right here over at Ford Merriman, they got a spot for rent. You only want $400 a month. We can do that? All right, what do you think? Scope it out, So he looked over there and got the information. I called the guy up. I thought, well, that's not really a whole lot of money. And I knew one of two things was going to happen. We're either going to fly with the wholesale, but as that was dipping down, let's give retail a try. So we kind of incorporated what we did wholesale with the buttons and the posters and T-shirts and pins into that location. Called the guy up. He says, yeah, give me first month, last month, I'll pay you utilities,
Wow.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
So all right, $400 a month, I guess we can give it a shot. And I kind of brought some of the people over from the wholesale over to the retail side. Then it came down to, okay, well, let's make this work. So we got to come up with a name. How are we going to come up with a name?
Right.
So my location, where I was at in Westland, I was in the middle. There's a barber shop on one side and a sign company on the other side. So the sign company neighbor, Aaron from Aaron Signs, he was the artist. And we thought we got to have a new cool name. What do we call ourselves? Well, there's already Stairway to Heaven. And we're just throwing all these names out.
Right.
Got to be a cool name. I don't know. Nobody knew a damn thing. But at the time, Liz was working for me, and Def Leppard's Rock of Ages came on the radio. It was huge.
Right.
And as we're throwing all these names, which one's going to stick? She just said, what do you think of Rock of Ages? I don't know. I never thought of that. So we listened to the music. We said, hey, I think that's it. So I raced next door to Aaron Signs. I talked to Aaron. I go, hey, we're going to do this retail thing. This is a name we want. Can you draw something up? And for what I remember, and again, it's 40 years ago, but what I remember, he had something to do with drawing of the rare earth tree idea. The
right.
logo. He had something
to
do with it. He was young at the time. He was, 17. He had something to do with that. I don't remember the specific. So he took his idea with the rare earth, and he did the cracked rock logo, which is my logo this day. And then I just said, yeah, just come up with something. I don't know what. And an hour or two later, he walks next door, and he goes, here you go. And we're like, wow, okay,
wow, that's quick.
Cool.
Yeah.
So now we got a logo. Now we got a location. And then started to figure out, okay, how are we going to set this up? How are we going to do this? And I said, all right, well, I got to have at least 2 months to figure out how we're going to do this. And the landlord agreed. So April 1st, I had to come up with a date I could remember in 84. That's when we got the lease signed. And then Bob and others that worked for me all came in. They're building 2x4 things and counters and all kinds of stuff. We got some T-shirt racks from a few places in Detroit, no longer there, that would sell used clothing racks and things for our shoes.
Right.
Which is trying to make
That's interesting. You had had the counters and all that stuff handmade, built.
Yeah,
You didn't
Bob,
buy
Bob
them.
knew how to do it. He was good. He knew how to do all the 2x4 construction and all that kind of stuff. You know, something I can do now, but then I was clueless. I was
Right.
kind of on, okay, how do you do this? How do you build this? Okay, what do we need to do? And he built everything. We built counters, material, as tough as that was. And then we got all the showcases, racks, everything used. And then we just, filled them all up with buttons. I said, hey, we make these little spin around button things you used to see in all the stores.
Mm-hmm,
So
right.
he made this giant one, and we were highlighting buttons and pins and shirts. And I wasn't quite sure what direction it was going to go. And in the beginning, in '84, we were making too much money. Nobody knew who you were. You know, the parking was really difficult. If you remember,
right,
it was in
yeah,
the back.
yeah.
You had to walk all the way around to the front.
So you didn't have an entrance in the back then at all.
No, that was at the time. It was subleased to another business, and it was Detroit News back doing all the kinds of chaos going on back there.
Right.
I agreed to it. We had shared bathrooms. It was
Yeah.
nice. So the Detroit News would come in on the weekends, and we would be in the front. They released that out in the back, and I tolerated it. But as I started to grow, and they eventually moved out, I took their half, busted out the wall, went back up the entire
Right.
section. Then when that got to be bigger, there was a store, like a garage door place next. And in time, as I progressed and got better, they moved out. And the landlord said, you want the other half? And I go, yeah, can I do that? Can I bust the wall out, knock it out? He goes, yeah. And I went next door with him, and as he evicted them, but they left, or whatever the story was. We walked in, and they literally had a wall, doors, of course, and behind the doors was trash, as high as the eye could see.
Oh, jeez.
So I kind of like agreed, okay, I clean this, and you cut me a deal, and I'll make your building look nice, and I
Right.
put tiles down. And then we did the, kind of the reckless sledgehammer, bust the wall out, we
Right.
don't know what the hell we're doing kind of thing. And my brother and I look at it back to this day, and it was pretty hilarious. We're taking sledgehammers, we're busting stucco out, we're busting 2x4s out, we're cutting the support beams. So it was like the Three Stooges. Like, gee, Mo, do you think that beam should be there? What's this little thing doing here? We went to town and we busted all this shit up. And I realized now that I didn't know then is, there was lock supports and all kinds of stuff. And the building, the whole damn thing could come down. Put tapestries up and just hide everything with tapestries. It was hilarious. But we expanded. This is a little bit of a fast forward, and they just kept
Right.
getting bigger and bigger. Now, in the beginning, back into the 80s, I was approached to do in stores, which became my trade after a while. The very first one would have been Halloween from Detroit.
Right,
We
yeah.
became friends, and I thought, well, I don't understand. What is an in-store? Well, they come out, they sign autographs, this, that, and the other. Yeah, but nobody knows who I am. Oh, they'll all show up. It'll be great. Oh, well, Halloween was the very first one, and I thought, wow, this is kind of fun, and took some pictures, had fun guys, and then all of a sudden we're selling their music, and it kind of turned into that as well. Now prior to that, keep in mind, I wasn't a record store, a quote-unquote rock and roll store. I mean, I've got pictures where
Right.
it'll say Rock of Ages, and underneath it, it'll say Rock and Roll Nerd.
Okay.
Music was never my thought, because 2 doors down, there's a record store. Farther down the road, there's a record store. There's also the Harmony House chain. And
Right.
all the stores
Yeah.
that I basically wholesale to, I'm now kind of being their competitor.
Starting
It
to,
wasn't
yeah.
intended to be that. And the way the music came into it, and now I'll get back to the in-stores, but the music part of it all came from customer request.
Right.
They came to me, the customers, and that's how I did it to this day. I
Right.
said, what do you want? Hey, if you start selling what at that time would have been compact discs, you sell CD and cassettes. It was actually cassettes first. You
Yeah.
sell cassettes. We'll go to you and we'll buy from you, because either we don't like going to that particular store,
Right.
or we like what you're doing and we want to help you out. I don't know. There's this guy over here and this one
Yeah.
down the road. Well, then all of a sudden I incorporate a few cassette tapes, and I go, wow, this is taking off pretty good. Then after you sell 10 tapes, similar to my wholesale days, where you buy $100 worth of posters and you flip 2 and 2 turns to 4, and on we go. Concept cassettes. And I listened to everybody. What do you want? And at that time, like in the 80s with Michael Jackson, where I got lucky with the wholesale end of things, I got lucky with Metal Blade. Megaforce and Metal Blade, and Important Records. All the metal groups were coming. Metallica was coming, and Megadeth, and Exodus, and Testament, King Diamond, and Venom, and every one of those bands, all the Combat Records cassette. And I had a good supplier, and I would buy them, and my thing for what it was worth, which other stores found somewhat fascinating, but I wasn't a record store. I took all my cassette tapes, and I always flipped them face up in the showcases, so where you could see the cover. And to this day, I keep saying, a good cover is going to sell the record.
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
crappy cover is not going to sell. So when I had them all flipped over, I would sell groups that nobody's ever heard of. Now with that going, and we start becoming a cassette store, so to speak, and then a little bit of vinyl start coming, and the customers loved it. And you get a little bit of heat from all the competition around you, so to speak. I wasn't.
Yeah, but you were more or less a specialty store because of doing all the metal. The other ones
Sure.
weren't like that.
And that's what I concentrated on the metal. You're right.
Mhm, right.
Everything we had at the time was metal, hard rock, and everything on the Combat, Important Records, Metal Blade, Warner Brothers, all the big groups. And then with that led into back to the full circle to the in stores was we did Halloween,
Right.
and it went great. Now, granted, they're pending. Then I got approached, and I can't remember who it was at the time. A manager was either Halloween Deuce, I don't quite remember, who had it in on King Diamond. And I was familiar with King Diamond from the cassette tapes I sold,
Right.
personal fake and so forth.
Right.
I said, all right, so we can get King Diamond here, huh? Really? You can get him? Oh, yeah, he's playing, the club in the 84, 85, whatever. Now, initially, I thought that would be great. But when I looked at the cassette tapes and I see what he looks like
Right.
and what he's all about, and I said, well, okay, that's cool, but I don't need no black candles and voodoo bullshit. And
Satanism.
no, it'll be great. And I'm like, all right, I'm telling you, though, if he comes in and acts like a weirdo. Now, Brian, this is, 85.
Right.
And I had it completely wrong in my head. So we set it up with King Diamond, and sure enough, he comes in. Couldn't have been the nicest guy, a nicer guy. No makeup, no nothing. He just completely without the face. He came in. The rest of the guys came in. It was a great in-store. They were fantastic. They loved it. I loved it. I thought, wow, this is kind of cool.
Was there a good turnout for that?
Oh, yeah.
For that?
And what's funny about it, I believe it might have been on Facebook, because a lot of my photos are still,
Right.
they got sun bleached because we're talking Polaroid.
Sure, of course.
A lot of the Polaroids just disintegrated.
Right.
But the King Diamond one, I believe, is on our Facebook page, and one of the guys saw it and was razzing another guy in the band because they were wearing the piston short things. Hey,
Yeah.
look at so-and-so, because I
Right.
got a back shot of it. And King Diamond was smiling. I mean, oh yeah, his line to me was, Bob, could I have another soda, please? Yeah, sure, I'll get you a soda, no problem.
Were you playing his music in the store during the
Pretty
in-store,
much, yeah,
that kind
I
of
think
stuff?
so. Yeah, because back then the way in-stores eventually evolved is with the label, so to speak. Let's say even a small label, they'll say, okay, fine, we'll get you the band to come out, but you got to buy product.
You got to promote it,
Usually.
yeah.
Now, unlike now, where you got to pay, money,
Sure.
money. All these in-stores free. So all I had to do is say, all right, buy like 20 cassettes, then I can get the label to say, yeah, we'll bring the band up, whatever.
Right.
So a lot of times, I'll buy the product. Obviously, you want to make money and sell the product, and a lot of times you overbuy. But you do that to get them out,
Right.
Oh, shit, now I got 10 extra tapes I'm never going to sell. I need money. And eventually you sell them.
Right.
But that's how the game was played. And in most cases, they would have a ride. They would come out. Or sometimes I would send some of my customers to go out and get them, not myself with a few people. And that in-store, for instance, King Diamond was fantastic. Like, wow, this is really cool.
How many people do you figure might have been there for that?
It's hard to say
back in
back
those
then. You
days?
got to keep in mind, nobody knew who I was.
Right.
And when the word got out that, hey, King Diamond's going to be, people, I don't know.
Probably had to been playing somewhere in the area to do
At
that.
time, yeah, it might have been Rosie's Place,
Yeah,
Blondie's.
yeah.
It was King Diamond, 1985, something
Right,
like that.
yeah.
Great in store, so that went over well. And then what that led into is, hey, this is kind of cool. Let's get with the labels. Let's get with all these other management people and get the word out. We're going to do in stores with everybody. So what I did is, again, at that time, I didn't have much clientele. Nobody knew who I was. I had all the time in the world to call on
Right.
this place. So I called record labels. I called management. Anybody I knew. Ed Roosevelt and I became friends, so I
Right.
get a hold of him. Hey, do you know who to talk to for this particular group? And I don't exactly remember who was after King Diamond, but we did Seduce, which turned out to be great. That was another great local band in store.
Right.
I mean,
Now,
but-
did they have their first album out by that time then?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was a good in store. People, they were huge.
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. That would have drawn people to your store
But
just from that, from word of mouth.
we kept rolling with bands that even nobody's ever heard of.
You didn't have Facebook or anything at
No.
that time, so
And that's
it had
it.
to be
That's-
word of mouth, or it had to be maybe Metro Times or what a local Jam Rag or
good
something like
point.
that.
There is no Google, internet, Metro. I mean,
weren't even
Facebook,
cell phones.
Nothing. No, nothing. I mean, the word had to get out word of mouth.
So that would be a hell of an accomplishment, for back then.
And as it progressed with the labels, which was the small labels, the metal label, Combat in particular, and at the time it was called Important Rec, which is the Sony subsidiary, which to this day evolved into Red Distribution and these other companies. Basically the same company that rolled over, switched the name. It's a Sony Music affiliate. So with them, with Combat at the time, I said, okay, well, who can we get? And we're looking at the shows coming up. We're looking at the set tape. Let's try the next one. Who else can we? So we hook up, let's say at the time, Morbid Angel. They were up big in store. Customers loved it. Then we did Creator. That went really well. And I think one of the guys wore one of my shirt video or something. Thought, wow, that's pretty cool. There's a VHS dude's wearing my shirt. And then we did Exodus. And Exodus the same way. In one of their documentaries, there was a hard, heavy video. He's wearing one of of my shirts I gave him.
Oh,
I go, well,
that's
this
cool.
is getting, exactly.
Yeah,
this is getting cool. Then we did that whole line: Testament, Overkill, Exodus. We did Megadeth during Peace Cells, huge.
So Megadeth was that?
Yeah,
Did it in-store there?
Peace
Wow.
Cells, yeah. At the time, really good in-store.
I wonder if that was around the time they played the Token, because they were.
I think so.
Okay, because that would have. I could see how that would tie it. And there again, these bands playing these local clubs, the word's going to get out. And hey, if you want to meet these guys,
that's exactly.
Hey, come out to Rock of Ages, because now you want to meet and greet with these bands, you're going to pay $30 to $100.
Well, it's nuts.
And
I got lucky.
if not more.
At that time, all these in-stores, not one that I can remember, there was any cost involved.
Wow.
Now, there might be, which I didn't understand until I asked Rosie, I'm like, the hell's a rider? She knows, because that's for me, I know what you mean. You got to buy sandwiches and stuff. What are you talking about?
M&M's.
Well, yeah, in the rider, you got to have M&M's. You got to have sandwiches. You got to have Perrier. You got I'm like, bullshit. You're going to get like a case of beers, and that's it. That's all I can afford.
A case of
Maybe
beer.
I'll get you some pizza. That's it. Speaking of beer, we did an in-store with the Mentors.
Right.
And the Mentors, they were hilarious. And that particular in-store, I'll never forget. They were scheduled to play the Greystone. Remember the old Greystone?
Yeah.
Scary Gary's place.
Yeah.
So they played a Greystone. We do an in-store. Now, granted, there's not many people showed up. It was hot, and thinking, okay, this is going to be really different. El Duce comes in, hilarious as can be. I have to admit. I thought I just better get a bunch of beers ready for these guys. Oh, he was just hilarious. This guy. They drive up with some piece of crap. It was a olive green Nissan station wagon, just an absolute piece of junk. And they park on the opposite side, because I didn't have any parking. So they parked over where the auto place thing was. We do the in-store. We're drinking beer. Everybody's having fun. El Duce's cracking up off of all these bumper stickers they used to sell back. I mean, over the top. I went to a trade show once, and I saw the guy selling these crazy, you name it, profane bumper stickers. And I bought, and he's just cracking up. I want this, I want this, I want this one, I want that one, I'll take this one. And he's got a whole stack of them. He goes out and he's plasters them all over his Mentors mobile. It's like, and you should see what some of these stickers say. And then I literally stood outside, I looked at this guy's truck thing, whatever it is. He's got a lawn jockey on the top of this car. He's driving around with this thing, bungee corded. So he's got a lawn jockey on top. He's got the horns, the bull horns thing as a hood ornament. And then the kid, the roadie, whatever they called him, he was sleeping in the back, where the hatch would come down, like the old school truck. He's sleeping back there. How, I don't know. They drag his ass around to do all the grunt work. He's there. And then the rest of the guys were hanging out. And I'll never forget, I had a CD. I can't think of the name of the CD, but they had a replacement guy. Sicky Wife Beater, El Duce, and all these other names. They had a replacement guy fill in, and of course they're all wearing their hoods, and who's who. Well, the one guy, he was in a band similar to Pantera, where they don't want to talk about the earlier albums and the hair's old. This guy was in a band that apparently was terrible, but I had the CD of it from Compton. It was in the rack. So as the guys are flipping through CDs shopping, he finds the CD, pulls it out, one of the band members, laughing hysterically, making fun of the guy in the band, going, look, there's your band. And he didn't know what to say. El Duce's ripping on him, everybody's making fun of him, whatever this band was. No, get it out of here, don't go around and talk about that. That in-store was fun. We actually went to the Greystone to go check the show out that night. We get there, and of course, typical Carrie Scary situation, serving minors. We get there, we're ready to open the door. He looks, he sees who it is. Okay, you're in. Cop shut it down for serving minors, so I never saw the Mentors play live. That never happened.
Yeah, was it Blondie?
No, that was the Greystone.
Oh, Greystone, okay.
Yeah, Mentors was a memorable in-store.
Well, the one thing I want to ask you before you get into that, because you mentioned you had beer and all that for these guys. Yeah. Did that become any kind of an issue with the cops? I mean, you're not serving kids or anything in there. You're just serving the band members yourself. But I mean, how, for some of these bands that started growing, and you're at the parking, did you ever have issues with like traffic? Yeah. Getting around and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the beer question, no. Now, you keep in mind, too, and I'll get on to another story about the stuff I was selling. I had nothing to my name. I had nothing to lose. You can't sue me. I don't own anything. Not my building.
Right. But I mean, the guy that owned the building, did he know you were going to be doing that?
Nah. The only thing, all I ever got from that guy, he was an old guy at the time, call me up, turn the music down. Really? The Detroit News.
Okay.
And having a brand. No, it was Free Willy. I mean, he was getting paid as difficult as it was.
Right.
And then we moved on. I paid more as I expanded. But yeah, when advance came out, we drank beer. I mean, we keep it discreet to a point.
Right, I understand.
Back in those days, it was just
Yeah.
as they say, no holds barred.
Yeah.
I was selling karate stuff.
Yeah.
Ninja stars, blow guns, nunchucks, stun guns. I mean, I met a guy at same thing, at a trade show to try to survive the business.
Right.
And he was a Miami guy. I met him in Chicago. He says, yeah, I sell this cutlery, weaponry, whatever you want to call it. I didn't know what cutlery meant.
Right.
Which is basically switchblades, stilettos, all this kind of shit. He goes, sell some of this in your store. I go, can I? And then when I think back, I can laugh at it now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I had blackjacks. I had stun guns. I had blow darts, blow guns things. I had these super sharp tungsten Chinese stars. I mean, and again, I thought, I got nothing to lose.
And were you limited to who you could sell any of that stuff to, as far as minors?
Maybe, but no, I never
Did
had.
you use any discretion, is what I'm saying? Has some little kid come in there?
Well, not a little kid.
Well, I don't mean a little kid, but I mean a minor.
Plastic ninja stuff.
Yeah, right.
But we tried it and it sold so well. I'd call them up. I go, yeah. What else do you got? What other kind of crazy, self-defense things you have?
Right.
Grappling hooks. And I start thinking back at this. Batman grappling.
Right. I know what it is.
Too.
Yeah.
Of course, the clientele come in, they look up, wow, okay, can you get me whatever? Yeah, let me call the guy up, no problem. And, I never do it to this day, but back then, oh my gosh, you can laugh at it because it was really hilarious. I can visualize 40 years ago looking down at a showcase, and I got $25, $30 tungsten steel Chinese stars. There's the 4-point, there's the 3-point, And I remember we were selling the heck out of these crazy blow dart things that you basically have these super sharp darts. You put a plastic thing on the end of it, and the actual dart looked like a piece of pencil lead, but they were super sharp.
Sure.
And you put the little orange glow-in-the-dark looking thing on the end, and you put it in the funnel, and boom, out she goes. So one night we're drinking Heineken, a 6-pack of Heineken sitting on the showcase, beer drinking days back then. I said, let's try one of these things out. And I shot the dart from a good distance, and not only went through the bag, through the cardboard, damn near went through the bottle, put a nice piercing hole in it, and went, geez, you gotta be kidding. We did a lot of crazy. I mean, that leads to another funny story, a duel in-store with Testament and Overkill. I think they were playing Hoken or Rosie.
When you got these groups,
Yeah.
and they're up and coming like that, from the labels and all that,
Mm-hmm.
did they send you out? I mean, like you mentioned earlier, you'd get their cassettes or
Yeah.
CDs and all that. They have it in there. Did the record companies in those days send you like any kind of display material?
A little bit.
To put up?
A little bit, you'll get posters.
That's what I
Unlike
mean.
now. Back then, yeah, you get album plaques, you get posters.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But when we hooked up, let's say the Testament Overkill thing, it might have been a picture of them, and there
Right.
maybe the label will spring for an ad. At that time, might have been Orbit magazine or whatever the other one, Fun magazine. Or if they drop an ad in there, they pay for it, and then I would promote the in-store. And the Testament and Overkill one went so well that we went to the show. Again, another beer drinking night. Let's go back to the store. So we go back to the store, and it's 3:30 in the morning. I've got video games there now. I think I had not Centipede, Donkey Kong. They all lined up. Galaxian.
Right.
So I go, hey, let's go back to to my place. We'll drink some beer. So Testament, Overkill, we're all drinking beer. I got the door wide open at the ROA across the street, 3:30, and again, it's free will. They do whatever you want. I thought, wow, this is cool. I'm partying with these bands. My door's wide open. Now all of a sudden, Garden City Police shows up, and he kind of looks in, and he's just staring, like in amazement, like what the hell's going on? What was going on?
Oh.
He just slowly walked in, and I can visualize this 40 years ago. What are you doing? I go, oh, this is Testament. This is Overkill. We're just hanging out. And, party at 3:30 in the morning. And the first thing he comes up and says, you got a business license? I go, yeah. Went off to the wall there, and he turns around, he looks at the license, and then he realizes that it's for real. What are you guys doing? What's going on? He goes, well, your door's wide open. It's 3:30 in the morning. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, it was all good.
Right.
And, he left. We shut the door. We just had fun. And, from that point, I kept in communication with some of the guys at times. Nuclear Assault was another band we did. Same way. Come out, all communicate back and forth. But just some of the crazy stuff that we did over there. The in-stores, the after-hours beer drink. Just craziness.
What was the size of that? I mean, you said you busted out the back, you busted out all the... How big did the
Not
store
as big
get?
as this. I mean, this is about 5,000 square feet.
Right.
That was probably maybe 3.
Oh, okay. Well, that's still
25
pretty
to
good,
3, something
especially
like that.
from when you started there.
And you got to keep in mind, besides every day trying to come up with an idea, trying to make things work, trying to pay the bills and so on and so forth, and listen to what people want. Harry, I had no air conditioning in that place. No air conditioning, no parking, very little lighting. The landlords did nothing to upkeep the place. It was dull. I did whatever I could. I didn't have the money to do it. I'm working with circuit boxes with Bulldog push button. So when I'll go back to the in-stores and tell you how we got out of that place. So I was there for 9 years. And it was always a struggle. I had issues with the neighbor next door. And I kind of had to okay, well, you can park here, a little extortion, pay me $250 a month back in the 80s. And we'll let you park and we'll give you a few spots, which never happened. So I was fronting money that I didn't have. And that got to a point where it got to be ridiculous, where I knew I had to get the heck out of it. The ownership situation was changed.
You talk about the owners of Frankie's?
Well, the people I originally rented from were also the landlords of Frankie's the bar. Frank had his. Well, he ended up at one point, because they're in their 80s. They're looking to eventually get out. Prior to that, it was like Bubonic bars before my time. So they were my landlords, and then Frankie came in, and he became my landlord. And for whatever reason, and I can't explain it to this day, I got nothing against the guy, but we did not see eye to eye. So he immediately takes my rent, damn near doubles. You want to stay here? We're going to double. Whatever reason, we just didn't get along. So I basically, again, another kind of an extortion type thing where what do? I can't move. I got 2 young kids at a time and a business that I'm trying to make. So I kind of went with it, and I paid darn near double, in rent. But as things progressed, and he opened up his bar, and he was thriving, I had parking in the back. I had no parking, no air, no nothing. I tried to get the owner at the time to get air conditioning. It never happened. So Frankie becomes my landlord, and it was terrible. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I don't know the specifics, he lost the bar. It was like a land contract or something. He loses the bar. It goes back to the original people that I was renting, who had to come in, bail them out, pay taxes, do whatever it is. I don't know the specific gist of it. So when they came back in the picture, I said, hey, this is great. You're going to be my landlord. I'm having a tough time with him. I don't know what's going wrong here. And they said, no, we're only going to come in. We're stepping in, fronting the money, because otherwise you lose the whole place, to do all this. Frankie comes back in the picture to then pay him back through reopening the bar.
Right.
And the bar thrives. It's very successful. As it became successful, I offered, buy my half, buy my building. I had to do it, but I tried. I was desperate. That never happened. And I knew that if I continued on in that location after 9 years, something's going to have to give. So I start basically exploring, eventually getting this place. And the guy that I end up buying this building from owned the building next to Frank. He was renting to Dr. Guitar and Desirable Disc. He's the landlord. And I didn't know much about him. I thought all landlords would like what I was, till Joe happens to come over. He'd come in, he looked around, old Italian guy, but he owned all the property up and down here. He turns out to be a great guy, but I didn't know that. Come down here, you can take Dr. Guitar's spot. I think when Ralph was out, and Desirable moved out, and some other, might have been even Rudy's pawn shop, I don't remember. But he says, you come down here, I'll knock the wall out, I'll give you what you got going on over here, I'll make it better. I'll give you air conditioning. And again, I thought the guy was blowing smoke, and I just kind of blew it off. Okay, great, fine. I thought, that's interesting. And I'll never forget to this day, I give this guy so much credit to get me to where I'm at today, which we'll get into later, is he walked down, he just looked in, and this guy at the time, I don't know, 60s, 70s probably at the time, he just looked in with his accent and says, how in the world do you get people, they park in my lot, walk all the way around to come into your place? You must be doing something right. And I said, yeah, this is what I've dealt with. No place to park. They park in my lot, they come around, they go to your place. And I could tell right then and there was a connection where he knew I've always been a hustler. I then realized he's a good guy, but we didn't have anything in common at the time. Then I realized, damn, this guy's he owns everything up and down here. So then, as I'm panicking, wondering, where can I find another building? Nothing's, at that time in 93, there was real estate was history. So I walk across to the building we're in now, and I see, wow, it says for sale or something. I walk in, and the drop ceiling tiles are being put in and all this cosmetic stuff. I walk in, who is it? Joe, the guy I just talked about. He's in here with his partner. And I walk in, I go, this is you too? He goes, yeah, this is my place. You like it? I go, yeah, you own this too? Yeah. Well, what are you going to do with it? We're going to sell it. I want to buy it, And then at that point, when I realized, and I was dead serious, and I don't know if they were or they weren't, I want to buy it. Don't want to lease it. You got to help me out. I want to do this. So we became business friends and so forth. long and short of that is I end up signing the deal. I said, I'm going to buy this building. And then right next door, there was a house, and that house was just vacant. Nobody was living there. And in my mind, fast forwarding, going, if I can make that happen, boom, I got it. So where I was at, I had enough debt issue. The place next to me goes out of business, turned out to be another auto place. So I make the deal with Joe, and I said, this is concrete. He goes, yep, I'll fix everything up. He's laying foundation, and I'll knock your wall out. I'll do all your work. Anything you want, I'll do, which he did. At that point, free and clear. I'm out of here. So I put a big sign up in the window. We're moving across the street. They caught wind of it, and I think Chuck will probably tell you that story because he was working. He was up front, and hey, the landlord's on the phone, and that's when I just blew up and got this and that. You know, everything I wanted to say. You got me to upbeat your piece of crap building. I'm out of here. And if you try something, Frankie or anybody else, I'll sue all you.
Right.
I had enough. I was closing. And I went my way, and they went their way. And I moved across the street. Frank took over and did what he had. This is 40 years. I saw the guy now, yeah. We've seen each other. Why that happened back then, I can't explain it. So I get this place, and, it ended up working out to be fantastic. It was difficult, a little scary because, will anybody know that I moved from across the street over to here? And yeah, it all worked out great.
Not like you moved 5 miles away or farther down
I
the
was
road.
worried.
They were pretty close.
I mean, even to this day, 40 years later, why don't you take a day off and why don't you close on this day? And I'm committed to the customers. I'm committed to what I'm doing,
right.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I always learned, even from the wholesale days, you don't want to disrupt that apple cart. If you've got something going right, you can't say, well, this week I'm going to be open till 9, and then in the fall we're going to close at 7.
Right.
And on Tuesdays we're open till 6 because I have to,
Right.
When you got a hodgepodge worth of nonsense and you mix things up, it never stays the same. So up to this point there's a lot of things I don't have to because I'm established. When does that word established come in? And, from then until now, it's all just like today when I think back at it. But that's how I got into this building. And then eventually a couple of years went by and the opportunity came up where that house came up for sale. The people that owned it had a death in the family and they wanted to sell it to get out of this area, whatever the reason was. So after that happened, Joe, again, the guy that owns all this property around here, he comes in the picture. I said, hey, I'm going to buy this house from the real estate guys right across the street. So that was convenient. Joe's real estate people. We make the deal happen. Can you tear it down? Sure enough, Joe's the man. So we get a permit, we demo the house, we demo the garage. He does all the construction. What I have to say about him, I can't say enough, is that he's the one that made that happen.
Now wait, I'm a little confused on when you're saying this house. Where was this house located in reference?
The addition right there.
Oh, it was that close.
Yeah, right next door.
So, and it went back into your
So what
back
I
parking.
bought,
Okay.
This part of the building,
Yes,
I know.
yes.
That right there was this opening was never there.
Ah.
Now, next door was a little old school house,
Oh,
and then
okay.
it had grass front, and towards the back there was a garage way off. The
Okay,
corner. So
I
I bought
see.
that entire stretch of property. Then Joe ended up doing the demolition and putting the addition, and he was basically my bank. I paid every dime to him, but I'd like, what am I gonna do? Don't worry about it. You make some, give me a little bit of money. So we just jotted it all down. He got my, you're doing well, and he knew I was going to do well. Obviously, here we are today. But he had faith in me, and I was a little like, man, I'll make it happen. I'll get you whatever I can make. Hey, you paid the guy off 6 figures to do that.
Yeah.
And in time, he got paid off. We became friends years and years later. Occasionally I see him fly in. I think he's retired now and comes into town once in a while. But he's the one that made that happen. And he did the addition, the counters, the windows, the construction, the air conditioning, everything this guy did. He did pretty much everything you see in here. They built the counters. His son Vito did all kinds of work with his construction company. That's how all this came about.
Now, at the old location, you mentioned you didn't have air conditioning. Did you have heat at least?
Yeah, but the funny thing is about the heat was like, when you walk into Sam's Club and you go to get the cart and you got that thing blowing in your face.
Yeah.
That's the kind of heat I had.
Oh.
So I had these ceiling mounted 900 miles an hour blowers, and it actually was kind of funny. Customers would come in. I have poster racks back there. So as they're flipping through the poster racks, they're getting blown over like a tornado from the heater.
Right.
I remember we took them down. We took both of them down the day that we got some kind of upgrade of heat, but it was ridiculous. I mean, everything at that time, I didn't know any different.
Right.
But it was 1950s mentality, 1960s. Everything was old. The building was old.
Sure.
And that setup, I had the heat, but in the summertime, oh my God! And I don't know what to do. Again, I had no money.
Did you have fans? Did you put little fans?
But if you were in the opposite side of the store
you weren't
shopping,
feeling it.
You had to have fans on you. And I felt bad. My customers would come up, they're dripping in sweat. I want to buy these records, and it's
before they melt.
hot. And that with the one side.
And the lighting, like you said, you didn't have really much in the way
bad.
of lighting.
No, it was.
Did he create any kind of mystique being a heavy metal store?
No, I mean, it was. I mean, yes and no. I mean, we dealt with the situation at hand. Everybody worked for me at the time. Everything I had was used, and you just get to a point that until you make the money, you got to go with what you have.
Of course.
We couldn't afford paper towels. We couldn't afford soap. We couldn't afford nothing. Nothing in the bathroom. You just, okay, well, just blow dry or something. I don't know what to tell you. I can't afford to buy anything. And everything I went to spend money on was going towards merchandise.
Right, of course. That's your business.
And I was there all day, all night, and I tried every conceivable idea to make the business happen. When Frankie's was open, I stay open till midnight, thinking maybe I'll get some of the bar people next door.
You'd stay open till midnight?
Whatever it took. I had nothing better to do.
Oh, okay.
So I put my signs on, and people walk by to go to Frankie. Frankie's just packed.
Yeah, of
That
course,
bar was
yeah.
packed.
Yes.
Frank had a hell of a run over there.
Oh, yeah, he did.
And once in a while, I get a few people popping in, and a lot of it was, what do you sell here? What do you do?
Right.
This, that, and the other. And I opened in '84, the year the Tigers won. Mm-hmm. And I remember they won. We had a little bit of buzz for the Tigers. I tried anything that might have happened. I even got some Tiger stuff. I don't quite remember. We had Bart Simpson stuff. It wasn't just buttons and pins.
Right.
Whenever
I get it.
Pistons won in that era, the Bad Boys thing. And I had friends that I met throughout the years that would be at like the Gibraltar Trade Center or some of the wholesale outlets, and they would come in and say, hey, we'll set you up with this. I work here, I wholesale this, I'll get you that. I have a place in Gibraltar, but I'm bringing stuff in China, rubber bracelets. And I have made another customer that ended up doing Bart Simpson shirts, and with those in it, whatever it was that made money, along with the rock and roll that I knew was going to sell. And we just winged it. We just didn't know what direction we were going to go. Then all of a sudden, the spandex came in. Believe it or not, huge, big money.
Oh, I'm sure.
The company, and a lot of these places, I think, reached out to me when I think about it, because the spandex thing of it, I had people working for me. I didn't listen, handful. Okay, what? But what was intriguing about it is the company was willing to work with us to get spandex in this rock and roll heavy metal stores I was well known for, to buy the clothing, the vest, the pants, all the stuff that goes with it. Wow, nobody's gonna buy that stuff. Well, you pay $10 for the shirt, the retail's $50. All right, we'll try it out. And before you know it, buying and selling, and you're flipping it, and they love it. And I'm selling a ton of it, and it didn't take much room on the rack. When the spandex took off, which again, everything in one way or another helped pay the bills, which is the main thing,
Sure.
along with the premise of the rock and roll stuff. So the spandex came in. Then we somehow got onto, I'm trying to think back at that time, we got into Doc Martens. Well, what's up with Doc Martens? Well, maybe we can open an account up with them. And we did, and same thing. Doc Marten shoes are selling, so we got Doc Marten shoes to go with the spandex and the karate stuff, the roll stuff, and whatever else we can come up with. I'm laughing now because some of the stuff that we sold then, I forgot we even had it. Someone will come in, hey, do you still sell lava lamps? Yeah, we did actually. We did really well with lava lamps.
Yeah.
I'll get asked.
Like posters and posters. Yeah.
We had posters in the back. We had all the showcases full of cassette tapes. And I remember even then CDs came in and customers came in. It's all new. CDs and long box.
Yeah.
Would you sell CDs like the guy down the street does? Well, I don't know. I mean, what do you mean? Oh, we'll buy them off of you. Well, they're kind of expensive and test it. I'd get one. I put a Led Zeppelin or something in. Then I'd sell it. Wow, that's kind of cool. What are you looking for? I'd take orders and same idea. Place an order, flip it, do something else. Then the CDs start coming in with a little end cap. And I had all the long boxes, Black Flag, Led Zeppelin, whatever. And of course, with music, as you know, it's expensive, it's difficult, and you can't necessarily say, well, I like Black Sabbath, so I want all the Sabbath titles. Wait a minute, you got to get Deep Purple, then you got to get CCR,
right.
And on and on and on and on.
Right.
It's endless of every single one. And as you can see here, even though we're doing audio, had a lot of inventory.
Well, the other thing you mentioned earlier, we haven't mentioned much since. This store, you have a lot of vinyl, new and used vinyl. Did you have much vinyl over there? You mentioned cassettes.
I did.
Did you have, was it new vinyl? For the time?
It was a little of both. I remember it was on the other side, on the edition side. Vinyl was a kind of a thing, unlike now where I guess collectible and so forth.
Right.
Records were cheap back. Kind of an edition. And I had a collection, somebody, I honestly can't remember, that started that whole idea to put records in. Whatever people were looking for, I would add. A lot of CDs. These, again, were in long boxes. Were in long long boxes and with a little bit of vinyl. Then the vinyl started to taper off.
Right.
And it's kind of funny when I see, I might even mention it to you, that it happens occasionally. Someone will come in with records to sell me now, full-blown into used records, that have my 1980-something price tag still on it.
From that store.
$5
Yeah.
to $1 to 25 cents.
Yeah, well, there was
And
a
that
lot of
same
places
record-
that sold records cheap back
Well,
then. You had Corvettes, you had Peaches,
Yeah.
Sam's Jams.
But I needed the money.
Yeah.
I didn't care. So when
Yeah.
I look at the record, I go, you got to be kidding. I charged a quarter for this. Now we're $60.
Yeah,
And the
that's a
thing
big
about
difference.
vinyl, now we're talking all these years ago, the vinyl aspect of it died. Really, these were coming out.
Yep.
Cassettes were still there.
Yeah.
I went to one of the wholesalers they're no longer there in Detroit. They were called Angot Records. They were around forever. And I'll never forget walking in their place, and they were phasing 8-tracks up. What? What do you mean? Oh, no, CDs we're going to do all
Yes.
CDs and records, CDs and cassettes. So the section that had vinyl was starting to dwindle, or starting to increase rather. The 8-track started to dwindle. There were all those blue 8. Couldn't believe it. You're not going to ever sell 8-tracks again? Of course, we now see what happened. Watched, and I also use that as an example, even to this day, to make sure you're not the last man on the boat when it's sinking. Because if that's going out, there's a reason for it. You can have a little niche maybe for used product, but if something's dead, you just can't keep kicking that dead hole. Expect your business to thrive with product that nobody cares about. You could add that in addition to 500 other things like I have. So my way of doing things was always diversifying. To this day, same thing.
So,
And
stay alive.
when I saw 8-track going on, okay, $1 a piece, $2 a piece. Well, maybe I can make some money. I made that mistake in the Michael Jackson day. When in the wholesale end of it, when the posters start dying, and I sold hundreds, if not thousands, of Michael Jackson, and a guy called me up, hey, we're blowing them out at 75 cents a piece. Should we? I end up buying a lot of this stuff because my head is going, wait a minute, I sold thousands of these. I know it's slowing down, but we could still make money. No, I bought dead merchant, and it took forever to clear the majority of
Now,
them.
is that all Michael Jackson?
Majority, yeah. Everybody jumped on the bandwagon back then of Michael Jackson product because it was huge.
Right.
And then when it started to die, I mean, everybody, party stores, every
Sure.
place in town had it. When it started to die, I made the mistake once of picking up this merchandise because it was so cheap. So I then taught myself, wait a minute, you got to be reluctant when it comes to product, as they call dead merchandise product. You got to wait another 30 years for this to sell? I've been doing this.
You know, sell it either, so that had to make it
The thing is,
trickier.
too, is that in 20, 30 years, because I've been around that long, a lot of things did turn. They are asking for Michael Jackson now.
Right.
Granted, he passed away, but his stuff does sell. Again,
Mm-hmm.
at one point, you couldn't give it away, just like vinyl across the street
Mm-hmm.
and whatever the other products were. So when we were doing the in-stores, selling the cassettes, selling the product, figuring out what is the next step, can we make it happen? This is a few years into it. I didn't know if I was going to make it. I honestly didn't know. I was at a standstill, a point. I call it the fork in the road. I've used this example many times. I went to college. I went to Schoolcraft a couple times, Eastern. Marketing major, radio communication minor. So either I'm going to do this or I'm going to do radio. I wasn't quite sure. I was in that fork in the road. Can I make this happen? Make it take a little bit more time into it, which is what I chose as compared to radio. I was very close to saying, all right, money do it. So we just decided, okay, let's do some more in-store. Let's beef it up a little bit across the street. And bigger opportunities came along, which made more clientele come in. I would get with the label and I said, hey, we got this band called Dangerous Toys. Well, who are they? Oh, they're on Epic, Sony at the time, I believe it was. A huge in-store, wrapped around the building. And what I did for these guys, and a lot of them remember to this day, because we hooked up, I think, once or twice on Facebook, the guy in Dangerous Toys, Southern guys, Texas, I believe. They were so appreciative that we brought them in, as I did many bands. It wasn't, nobody ever heard of you. There's a ton of people who showed up. And then we get a good relationship, a good turnout. Then we did Trouble from Chicago. Great band. And the way that happened, I reached out to Trouble. They were on Metal Blade at the time. They're Chicago-based, sound like Black Sabbath.
Right.
Somebody turned me on to them because they knew I'm a big Sabbath. Wow, I've never heard anything like this. So I reached out. They were playing probably Rosie's Place, Blondie's. And I said, I got to get these guys out here. And then every time someone would come in, what do you have new? I'd have Trouble playing, the Come and Run to the Light.
Right.
Well, then it was Rosie's Place because I went to Blondie's that night to see him. So we did the in-store. Turned out to be great rapport with the band. They thanked me on the album. That was a first. So I go to Blondie's and go, yeah, we thanked you on the inside of Run to the Light. I didn't know what that meant. Wow. And he put Rock of Ages Detroit.
Right,
Whatever.
right.
That was the point of it. I got thanked on that album. I got thanked on another one. It was Devastation. We did an in-store with them. They thanked. I had no idea. I thought, this is kind of cool. I got to remember.
That's key.
I mean, over there, God, I had Death Angel. I had Great Cat from East Coast. We did Peter Criss from Kiss, huge.
Tell me the story about Slayer.
The Slayer
That's the major story.
Slayer
I want to wait for you.
Slayer number one in story.
Right.
This is the real story because it's been twisted in the Slayer. They laughed because we did a second in-store with them here. But the first in-store came about when Rain and Blood was happening. And I know Rosie had them played over at Blondie's, and I believe this show was at Harpo's. So I said, we got to get Slayer out. And sure enough, I hooked it up with Def Jam, I think it was at the time, to come out and do this in-store. So I had people working for me. At the time, the way the layout was across the street, you would enter from the front side of Ford Road, an alleyway. So when the band showed up, I said, okay, we'll bring the band in from, now mind you, a lot of these in-stores, this is all new. They stand outside, I know where in the store I can put them. So all right, we'll put them outside, but we'll lock the door. And there's a sidewalk that goes all the way down in front of Frankie's. I just thought, just trail them all down the road. And Ford Road's right over here, no big deal. So it started getting bigger. And it wasn't 2 deep, it was 3 deep. Then it was 5 deep. Then it was 6 deep, all the way down the sidewalk. And I thought, this is kind of interesting. Okay, there's a lot of people out there. I said, just lock the door. Don't let anybody in until the band comes out. So all of a sudden, the band comes from the back way.
Right.
We open up the back door, let them in. They start walking through. And as they're walking through to go, I think they were behind the showcase at last time. The crowd that could see through the glass door in the front area,
saw them.
They're all yelling Slayer, going crazy to where it was like a riot type thing. I'm going, this is getting a little nuts. And the band came in, they're all yelling Slayer, they all want to, they can't get in, the door's locked. Then all of a sudden you hear smash, the glass is broken. What happened? And I had a display window, 3 panes of glass with some wood lattice that we would hang posters up. We'd come in around, basically a 2x4 wall that my guys built, and we put that crisscross lattice and put posters in. Well, the middle frame of glass, the force from all these people pushing forward, this young girl takes out the centerpiece of glass, and I'm talking maybe a 5-6 foot piece.
Jeez.
And the top was kind of half mooned at the time. So as she goes into my display window with the glass, took all that was, of course, this is an old ass building.
Yeah.
This is plate glass. Now I got tempered laminate. They got old plate glass. Takes it all out. She's in the window, jumps over the brick. She's in. I think it was her cousin or somebody that was with her. He jumps over. He's in. There's shards of glass all around this frame.
Right.
And I'm like, holy cow, this has got to stop. And then, things calmed down. The Slayer manager got with the girl. She got medical attention. They had a couple stitches in her wrist. But they're like, oh, this is getting crazy. So give her backstage, give her pay for the ambulance, whatever it is. Everything was fine. Problem with me, now I got a busted front window. I have no money. I got to go to the show. I got to make the in-store happen so the customers are happy. I'm going to the show to see what's on. I call the company up, board it up, pay out money I didn't have. So whatever I might have made a little bit, I have in Slayer, I lost it by having my blood.
Right.
We went, I think it was with Rosie, we were on stage, saw the show, and it just took forever to eventually get the money to fix the window. Yeah. And as time went on, we'll go back to more in-stores, but I brought Slayer back to this building for Undisputed Attitude. Now, supposedly the rumor was going around that Slayer threw some girl through the window. I mean, it just got all twisted.
As
It never happened. And I mentioned it to Tom and Kerry King and everybody, and they all remembered it. It was kind of funny how that got out as actually it didn't happen that way. But we did the Undisputed Attitude.
Before you get to number 2, so they're there, and eventually you let the people in for the autograph signing. What are they signing? Did you, for that band, in any way get more product, have more product? Or
it would have been Rain and Blood. Rain and Blood came out. Tapes.
Did you have enough? I mean, this kind of crowd, this many people? Or were people bringing records in for them to sign also?
Well, with in-store is a good point. It's either or. Unlike now, where they're restricted to say, okay, if you want to meet this band, you got to pay for it. You only get one thing signed, and you got to buy it up. No, whatever you want. You came in with a shirt, they signed a shirt. We had a customer, which I've got a photo somewhere I'll show you, that made this giant banner. We hung the banner. It was all just homemade. Brought something in, you get it signed. As a matter of fact, there's the Rain and Blood, where Tom Moran blacked his teeth out in the back of the album cover up on it. So that was from that in-store, and it went over great. And
how many people would you figure you had for that, and how long did it last?
Yeah, that took
that many people.
That took a bit, especially with the chaos class of a few hours, I imagine, and then they did the Harpo show, which went over well. And again, they were shooting up faster than when they played Rosie's. Initially the small Who Is This band is now at a zero or two, and that's what's going to cost you to
of course.
And then they just start from that point.
They went to the roof. Yeah.
And I brought them here. Same thing. Really good turnout. Brought them in the back at the time.
Nobody got thrown through your windows here, though.
No, there was a lot of joking about it. And then I talked to Tom backstage. Yeah, it was at Harpo. Just about what happened. It was crazy. It was just
that is insane.
As they say, shit happens. But,
right.
That was a definite memorable in-store. Peter Chris one was a good in-store. That was questionable.
Okay, we're going to end part one now.